Tonight, Iran has launched retaliatory strikes on Israel. The United States has officially entered the Israel-Iran conflict. Since the start of the 21st century, there hasn't been a single year when the U.S. was involved in a foreign war. It may sound surprising, especially since politicians often promise to bring troops home and advocate for peace. But the reality tells a different story. When we look at who truly wins and loses, we see that while everyone agrees war is tragic, a small group is quietly making enormous profits. After Israel's recent attack on Iran, shares of defense giants like Lockheed Martin, RTX Corporation, and Northrop Grumman soared. This isn't a one-off phenomenon, it's part of a consistent pattern. They sell directly to the government. And if there's one thing the U.S. government buys in bulk, it's weapons. This week alone, when Trump criticized a CNN reporter's coverage of U.S. airstrikes on Iranian nuclear sites, left-leaning media highlighted his personal attacks, painting him as unhinged. Meanwhile, right-leaning outlets portrayed him as standing up for military credibility, blaming the media instead. Same event, two completely different narratives. This is why tools like ground news can show how stories are framed across the political spectrum. It's helping you see the whole picture. Look at personnel. Mark Esper, Trump's Secretary of Defense, was previously Raytheon's top lobbyist. Over half of senior Pentagon officials go on to work for defense contractors after leaving government, helping to keep military budgets large and growing. In 2023, U.S. military spending topped $877 billion more than the next 9 countries, combined with over half of that going straight to private defense contractors. So the system rewards chaos. Tensions between Israel and Iran are escalating. Drone strikes and air raids exchanged, and the U.S. sending carrier groups and air defense systems into the region. Predictably, defense stocks are surging again. Raytheon shares jumped 18% in weeks. And Palantir, a data analytics firm specializing in military tech, saw trading volume triple as investors anticipated new contracts. The more unstable the world, the more contracts they win. The incentives behind decisions reveal a different picture. A network that doesn't need to openly push for war because everyone in it benefits when tensions rise and budgets grow. National security is often presented as the reason, but in practice, it's a reliable economic engine. As long as these incentives exist, the cycle of conflict and profit will continue. It's not just America. Global arms exporters in France, China, Israel are seeing record sales as more countries ramp up military spending in an unstable world. After the start of the 2024 Israel-Iran clashes, Lockheed Martin sales jumped 14% on the back of missile demand. Winning these contracts means massive profits, and demand for their products surges during conflict. Around 16% of the U.S. budget now goes to the military, the largest single category of spending, costing the average American over $2,800 a year just to fund the Pentagon. Over time, the system has evolved to benefit a small, well-connected group at the expense of everyone else. Every dollar spent on weapons is a dollar not spent on healthcare, infrastructure, or supporting struggling families. It's part of why, despite America's immense wealth, millions struggle to afford basics like housing, education, and medicine. These companies profit directly from war, chaos, and fear. But unlike other industries that might indirectly benefit from crises, defense companies actively work to create demand by lobbying policymakers. In 2022 alone, they spent over $130 million, around $350,000 per day, in lobbying in Washington. Military budgets have become so routine that most Americans barely notice them. When questioned, familiar justifications appear. Strong defense keeps the country safe. Weapons manufacturing supports jobs and local economies. And to a degree, that's true. The defense industry employs over 2 million people, around 1% of the U.S. workforce. In some regions, its contracts are a major economic driver. For example, after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, defense stocks jumped by 35%. On July 5th, when Israel raided the West Bank, prices surged almost 30% again, netting billions for major shareholders. Defense companies fund politicians who vote to expand military budgets, which leads to more contracts and more political donations. And when war breaks out, it's the jackpot. In fact, 2024 became one of the most profitable years ever for U.S. defense companies, with sales climbing by 30%. Meanwhile, ordinary Americans faced the opposite: persistent inflation, high interest rates, and squeezed household budgets. Yet while social programs were slashed by $63 billion, military spending only increased. The message was clear: war makes some people very rich, just not everyday Americans or the soldiers on the front lines. It's obvious why companies profit from conflict. But look deeper, and you find a system carefully built to keep the money flowing: the military-industrial complex. Today, 13% of the U.S. budget goes to the military. At first glance, it seems necessary. Governments need to protect their citizens. But over time, a deeply interconnected system emerged, uniting defense contractors, policymakers, lobbyists, and the media. This system doesn't just react to threats. It helps shape how threats are perceived and how governments respond. Defense giants like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Northrop Grumman don't sell to consumers or compete on an open market. Media coverage helps fuel that demand. It's unlike in industries like restaurants, where companies compete to offer better products at lower prices. Defense contractors compete to sell weapons, and their success depends on conflict. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. issued $80 billion in extra defense contracts, all benefiting private firms. And what does all that money buy? Influence. The system doesn't stop at direct lobbying. Defense firms embed themselves in campaigns, think tanks, and media outlets, creating a self-reinforcing loop. Since the early 2000s, this cycle has driven military spending to double in real terms. From $400 billion to nearly $700 billion today, but these benefits don't change the fundamental problem. When profits depend on conflict, incentives twist dangerously. Stability means lower earnings. Instability means booming revenue. Today, this dynamic is playing out in real time. This pattern repeats every time. Every missile fired, every troop deployed, every new overseas base maintained pushes defense companies' profits higher. Beyond stock prices, the deeper cost is rarely discussed. War is insanely expensive. This structure funnels public money into a few corporations and their wealthy shareholders, with ordinary taxpayers footing the bill. While many see war as a last resort when diplomacy fails,